The Tzemach Tzedek writes in regards to the Histalkos, the passing of the Alter Rebbe, after describing briefly all of the hardships and troubles that the Alter Rebbe went through as he was escaping the French army, eventually arriving in the village of Piena on Erev Shabbos of Parshas Vayishlach in the year of Tovkuf Ayin Gimel. Writes the Tzemach Tzedek that on Motzoi Shabbos Kodesh of Shmos, which was Chav Gimel, going into Or to Chav Dalet Teves, Kachatzois Shah Yud Aleph, means a half hour into the 11th hour, in other words, around 10:30, Nishba Aroin HaKodesh, the Holy Ark, referring to the Alter Rebbe, was, so to speak, captured. In other words, the Alter Rebbe passed away. Mo'er Yisrael, the luminary of the Yidden, Mashiach Hashem, the anointed of Hashem, etc. Says the Rebbe, it's known that all of the Yomim Tovim, and similarly, all the special days of tzaddikim, which includes automatically their birthdays, their days of Hilula, etc., all have a connection to the parsha in the Torah that's being read at the time. Similarly, says the Rebbe, it's understood from this. This idea is also understood from the Vort, the famous Vort, the Torah Vort of the Baal Hilula of the Alter Rebbe himself, who said, "Medaf leben mit der Zeit," we always must live with the time, meaning with the Parshas HaShavua. Applying that to in our instance, even though the Histalkos of the Alter Rebbe was Orluch of Dalet Teves, going into Chav Dalet Teves, which that year fell on Sunday of Parshas Ve'era, but from the fact that the Tzemach Tzedek doesn't only write Orluch of Dalet Teves, he doesn't even just write the day of the week, meaning that it was Motzoi Shabbos Kodesh, but he also adds that it was Motzoi Shabbos Kodesh of Shmos. And furthermore, the Tzemach Tzedek also adds that Shabbos Kodesh Shmos was Chav Gimel Teves, so in other words, the focus is particularly on that Shabbos as well. From this we understand that the Histalkos has a connection also, or perhaps even mainly, to Parshas Shmos. Especially, says the Rebbe, that the precise time of the Histalkos, as the Tzemach Tzedek writes, was Kachatzois Shah Yud Aleph, which was 10:30 at night, which regarding a number of dinim and inyanim, we know that the hours of Motzoi Shabbos Kodesh, the hours before midnight, are still connected to Shabbos. And therefore, this shows even more that there's a connection between the Histalkos and Parshas Shmos specifically. Says the Rebbe, the content and the toich and the point of Parshas Shmos is the Golus, is the exile of the Yidden, Shibud Mitzrayim, they're in slavery. The enslavement in Mitzrayim. And the Rebbe explains, and the Parsha is before Shmos, Parsha is Vayigash and Vayechi, is the time before of that slavery in Mitzrayim, even though they had already gone down to Mitzrayim. As the Razal tells us, that Kol Zman, as long as one of them was still alive, one of the Shvatim was still alive, then the Mitzrim did not enslave the Jews. So that's in the Parsha is before Shmos. When it comes to the Parsha is after Shmos, Parshas Va'era and Boy, even though they are also discussing the time when the Yidden are still in Mitzrayim, nevertheless in Parshas Va'era you can already start seeing the signs of the Geula, the beginning of the Geula. We have the wonders and the miracles that Hashem performs, the Makos that He brings on Mitzrayim. And even within the Shibud itself, even within the slavery itself, that also already started becoming lighter. Furthermore, Chazal say that on Rosh Hashanah, that means a half a year before when they leave Mitzrayim. So the avodah, the hard work already stopped, that our fathers didn't have to work hard in Egypt. And that's in Parshas Va'era. Certainly in Parshas Boy, that's already discussing the Geula B'Poil. On the other hand, Parsha Shmos, where the whole point of the Parsha, the whole Parsha, is all about the intense, difficult labor and work that the Yidden had in Mitzrayim, the very extreme Golus. And all the way at the end of the Parsha, we have that Paro is decreeing not to continue giving the people straw, that the work should become even heavier and harder on the people, to the extent that even Moshe Rabbeinu at the end of the Parsha is arguing to Hashem that from when I came to Pari, things have become much worse for the Yidden. Says the Rebbe that with this we could possibly explain the connection between the Histalkos of the Alter Rebbe to Parsha Shmos. Because as mentioned before, the Histalkos of the Alter Rebbe was during a time when he was in Golus, he was in exile, as the Tzemach Tzedek describes it, when they were running away from the French and being thrown around from one place to the other till eventually they come to this village called Piena. And as all of the description of all of these bothers and troubles and suffering are described in a letter that the Mendel Rebbe wrote. Says the Rebbe, it's known what the Baal HaHilula, meaning the Alter Rebbe, writes regarding the general concept of Hilula and Istalkus, that the time that a tzaddik passes away, all of his action, all of his Torah, all of his avodah that he worked his whole life are all going up l'mayla, are all ascend above, and then they become revealed and shine down in a revealed way from above to below during the time of his passing. Says the Rebbe, since everything that happens is ba'ashgacha pratis, especially something that's happening with a tzaddik, a nosi hadoir, so it's understood that the fact that the Alter Rebbe's istalkos was in Golus, that itself shows that there must be an inner connection between all of his actions, Torah and avodah, of the Baal HaHilula, of the Alter Rebbe. All of these actions that are being oiled, that are ascending, that are becoming revealed during the time of the Istalkos, there must be a connection between all of that and this special Maila of the Avodah in the time of Golus specifically. And as a result of that, that's why it ends up being that Begashmius, his Istalkos also ends up being in Golus. That's because in essence his Avodah is connected with this sort of idea. Says the Rebbe via Shloimar, we could say that this is also the reason that the very last Chag HaGeula, Yutas Kislev, that the Alter Rebbe celebrated during his life, physical life in this world, where was this Yutas Kislev? Also in this place of Golus, the place where he passed away. Because as mentioned before from the words of the Tzemach Tzedek, that he came to Piena on Erev Shabbos of Vayishlach, which is just before Yutas Kislev. And the Rebbe explained, since Yutas Kislev is the Rosh Hashanah L'Chsidus, this is the whole point of the Maisa, the Teirosei, V'Avoidosei of the Baal HaHilula of the Alter Rebbe, which, as we said, the Alter Rebbe's Avodah is specifically connected with this idea of the Maila, the special quality of Avodah in the time of Golus. This is why it ends up being also that the very last Yutas Kislev, which means the very highest Ilui of this special day, the highest elevation of this special day, of Yutas Kislev during the time that the Alter Rebbe is in this physical world, because as we know, every single year, the Rebbe is quoting what the Alter Rebbe says about Rosh Hashanah, but the Rebbe is applying this to Yutas Kislev, that every single year there's a whole new oir that never was shining down before, ever such a great oir. That means every Yutas Kislev is greater than the previous one. So the very last Yutas Kislev of the Alter Rebbe in this world is also in Golus, in the same Golus, in the place where he passed away. And because, as we said, because this is the place, this is the time where all of his Maisim and Torah and Avodah are coming betachlis ashlemus in their greatest way, as mentioned before. So how do we understand all of this? Says the Rebbe, we're going to understand this by first explaining the idea that we spoke about, that Shmos is all about Golus and Shibud Mitzrayim. The Rebbe says we discussed many times that the name of a parsha expresses the content of the whole parsha. And the question becomes in our case, the name of Shmos, Parsha Shmos, seemingly would actually represent something that's the opposite of Golus Mitzrayim. And the Rebbe points out three things, three reasons why that is. Number one, Chazal tell us, as mentioned before, that as long as one of those of the Shvatim were alive, those that came down to Mitzrayim, so the Egyptians did not enslave the Jewish people. So what comes out is that when the pasuk says "Ve'ele shmois b'nei Yisrael haboyim Mitzrayim," so this word shmois, which is about the names of the people that came to Mitzrayim, this is actually what did not allow the shibud and the golus of Mitzrayim, because as long as they're alive, there's going to be no golus. Point number two, the special emphasis of the word Shmos itself, what names are all about. Why is there Hashem counting the Yidden by name? So as Rashi tells us, it's all to express and to notify how much Hashem loves the Bnei Yisrael, which is clearly, again, the opposite of the idea of Golus and the difficult enslavement of the Jewish people, which is being discussed in the Parsha. And finally, the Rebbe says, the Medrash says, that when the Eile Shmois B'nei Yisrael, Medrash says they're being called over here by their names. The names over here that are being mentioned is particularly Al Shem Ge'ulas Yisrael, they are being mentioned. In other words, each one of the names is symbolizing and hinting to a certain aspect of Ge'ulah. So how can we then say that the whole idea of Shmos is the Inyan of Golus? Says the Rebbe, the explanation is it's known in regards to the special milah, the special quality, the special advantage about the avodah that Yidden have in the time of Golus, consists of the fact that it's specifically then that the koyach of Mesiras Nefesh of a Yid is revealed. Mesiras Nefesh, as we know, comes from the very Yechidah of the Nefesh, the very, very essence of the soul. And this idea, this koyach of the Yechidah of the Nefesh, the etzem of the soul, is specifically expressed in a situation where one does not really have the full grasp and the full feeling in matters of godliness, based on what's known as his koyches agluyim, his revealed faculties of his neshama, his seichel and his midos, but rather the iskashrus of the Yid Elikus at this point of time is not so much through these koyches agluyim, through these revealed faculties, but it's mainly coming as an expression of his very, very essence. The Rebbe says this is why in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, where Elikus, where godliness was shining in a very revealed way, and the avoid of Yidden then was also more with their koyches agluyim, with their revealed faculties. They sensed godliness in their inner koyches of seichel, of their intellect, of their midis, of their feelings, and so on. And since their main avodah was then al pitam vadas, based on logic and reason and feeling and so on, so this avodah of the Yechidah, the power of the Yechidah, wasn't really felt so much. It's specifically in the time of Golus, when the godliness is concealed. As the Pasuk says, we don't see signs, we don't see miracles, we don't see godliness, we don't know what's going on. And there's all sorts of concealments and darkness, there's challenges for the avodah of Torah mitzvahs. It is specifically then, when and because there is lacking the impact of the revealed koyches of the neshama, that's exactly when the Yechidah is aroused, is awakened, to strengthen oneself, to overcome all of the difficulties, all of the challenges that are there for Torah and mitzvahs. So the Yid's essential bond with Hashem is revealed, helping him overcome all of these difficulties. And the Rebbe says this is also the general idea of what Golus Mitzrayim was all about, and generally the concept of Golus. This is what brought out the essential bond between the Yid and Hashem. And this is also why it was a hachana preparation for Matan Torah, because the whole point of Matan Torah is to draw down godliness into dvarim gashmi, into the physical things that are very, very lowly. And through Torah and mitzvahs, they are going to become a place for Hashem, because that's specifically what's going to express the very, very essence of Torah. It's only over there that the essence of Torah is being revealed, is being expressed. Says the Rebbe, this idea of the mile of the avoid in the time of Golus, that even though on the one hand the godliness is not shining, and yet davka, that's when the etzem anashama is revealed. Says the Rebbe, this is all hinted and connected to the concept of Shmos, the idea of names. Says the Rebbe, the connection between the name of a person to the person, we find two extremes. On the one hand, we see that the person for himself, by himself, totally does not need the name. The name is only used as a means for somebody else to be able to call him. In other words, the name seemingly is a completely external thing compared to the person himself. And that's why, says the Rebbe, from a name itself you will have no idea, no understanding and any concept about the person who's being called by the name. Best proof is that you could have multiple people with the same name, and yet in their core essence they are completely opposites to each other, because the name is not really reflecting the person. The Rebbe says this is different. Chassidus speaks about a concept of shame and a concept of oir, light, a ray. So we say when it comes to oir, when it comes to light, this is a reflection of the moir of the luminary. And therefore, from the light, you can have some sort of concept of the moir, what is the thing that's producing that light. Whereas a name is completely not telling you anything about the person that's called by the name. So this is on the one hand. On the other hand, the opposite extreme is, it's known that the name of the person is very much connected to his essence. And to his essence, the way it is higher than the koyches agluyim, higher than the revealed faculties. And the proof of this is, when you call someone by the name, the person turns with his whole essence, he turns to the one who called him by his name. Furthermore, says the Rebbe, when a person, Rahman al faints, which means that the chayis hanefesh, the vitality of the soul, is in a situation where it's completely removed or hidden from being revealed in the body. How do we revive the person? It's by calling him by his name, which shows that the name has a deep connection and touches the very essence of the Chayis HaNefesh. And this is why it has the ability to bring back this Chayis into the Koiches HaGuf, into the faculties of the body. And in this way, there's actually a certain advantage now. We compared before shame and name and oir and light or ray of light. In this case, there's going to be an advantage in shame. Because in the case of oir, in the case of light, even though you could get to know about the luminary, but you'll never bring the source of light through the ray of light. Whereas here, you're calling the person by his name and it's drawing forth the person and the chayas of the person. So what do we see from all of this? That the essence of the person is expressed specifically in an area where in a revealed way, we don't see any connection at all to the person. In other words, on the one hand, the name has nothing to do with the person, and yet it's dafka there that the very essence of the person is connected. The Rebbe says this is similar to the idea of what we were speaking about, the Maila of the Avoid in the time of Golus. That where the etzem of the Yid is revealed specifically in the place, and at the time where there's a concealment, where there's this concealment of the time of Golus. Says the Rebbe, now we could see the connection between the avoida of the Baal HaElula, the Alter Rebbe, with Parsha Shmos, which we said is the idea of Golus. Because it's known that just like there's this idea of Yechida, the essence of the soul, by the Nefesh Adam, by the personal soul, in a similar way we have in Torah, we have what's known as the Yechida in Torah, and that is Torah Chassidus. And the main gilui of this Yechida of Torah is in Chassidus Chabad, as the Baal HaElula, as the Alter Rebbe revealed it and brought it down, Chassidus, into Havana V'Asag, into understanding, so you should be able to impact also the Nefesh HaBahamis and your portion in the world, to the extent that you're transforming them from one extreme to the other, because that's specifically where the etzem of Pnimiyas HaTorah is expressed. Again, Davka, where it's dealing with this area that's seemingly such a hidden and dark place. In other words, just like we said before about the person, that the revelation of the Yechida, of the Etzem HaNeshama, is specifically where the Koiches HaGluyim, where those revealed Koiches are in a state of concealment. In a similar way is what we're saying regarding the Yechida of Torah, that it's being revealed specifically then, and in time when it needs to deal with the lowliest levels of the Nefesh HaBahamis and our portion in the world. As the Pizgam of the Baal HaElul of the Alter Rebbe, that the whole idea of Chassidus is to transform the nature of our Midos. Says the Rebbe, so here we have the common denominator between the actions, the Torah and Avodah of the Baal HaElul of the Alter Rebbe and the special mile of the Avodah in the time of Golus, which we said is the theme of Parsha Shmos, because in both of them is Nizgala, this idea of the Yechidah, specifically in a place that's completely negated from any sort of Gili Oir, a place that doesn't have any sort of light revealed in any way whatsoever. Says the Rebbe, it's known that the darga of the avoid of the Baal HaElula is also hinted in his name, Shneir Zalman. Shneir is from the word Shnei Oir, two lights, and the word Zalman has the same letters as the word Lizman, which means time. And when we put the two things together, that means we're combining this idea of Shnei Oir with Zman, with time. What does this mean? Shnei Oir, as the Baal Shem Tov had said regarding the Alter Rebbe, is that the Alter Rebbe is going to illuminate the world with two lights. This is the light of the Torah of Nigla and the light of Torah Sanister, of the hidden part of Torah. And the Chiddush of Shnei Oir, in one word, is that by the Alter Rebbe there was the ultimate and perfect combination between Nigla and Nistar to the extent that they became like one. And the koyach to be able to do this is because the Alter Rebbe was Megala. He revealed the very essence of Torah, that Yechidah in Torah, which is higher than all sorts of boundaries and limitations of that which is concealed, that which is revealed. It's beyond all of that, and that's why it could combine both Oiros, that of Nigla and that of Nister. And where does he bring all of that down? Lizman, into time. Time is connected to the world. And Olam, into the world. Olam is from the word Helam, it's a concealment. That means that even in this lowly world, the Shnei Oir should be shining, and the Chibur, the combination of the two Oiros. And that is when you have the Gilui of the Yechidah Shebetoira, as we discussed earlier, that the Gilui of the Yechidah, the revelation of the Yechidah, specifically in the lowliest place, in a place that's seemingly not a Keli for any Giluyim, for any revealed levels, that's where the essence is revealed. The Rebbe is now in the last sif of the Sicha going to make a connection to Parshas Va'era as well. Says the Rebbe, we discussed many times that the whole tachlis hakavana, the purpose is that even those things that are higher than ishtalshalos, higher than all the spiritual realms, and higher than the faculties of the person, but ultimately it's all about that they too should come down begili in a revealed way and in a pnimius, in an internal way, permeating also the koichas of the person. Not only in a concealed way, in other words, like the way it's in time of Golus. Because even though we said there is definitely a mile in the avoid of Zman HaGolus, because that's when the Yechida is aroused and inspired and revealed. Nevertheless, we know that the whole purpose of Golus is the Geula that comes afterwards and through the Golus. In other words, that the Gilui of Yechida of Golus should also shine in the Koichas Pnimim, in the inner faculties of the person, that they too should be permeated with the Etzem HaNefesh. Says the Rebbe v'yeshloimer b'derech efsha, that that's actually the Chiddush of the Baal HaYilula of the Alter Rebbe in Toras Chassidus Chabad. That the very essence of Pnimius HaTorah, which is higher than Ishtalshlus, higher than logic, higher than reason, L'cha'oreh can only take it through Kabbalah and Emunah and so on. And yet even that should come down in a revealed way and in a way that it can be understood in the Chachma, Bina, Das of the person. And through that also impact his Midos, that he should be inspired to Ava and Yira. Says the Rebbe, this is hinted in the fact that the Histalkos was Moitzoi Shabbos Kodesh, early Yom Aleph going into Sunday of Parshas Va'era. Now Va'era doesn't stand over here in a revealed way. Because as we said before, what says in the letter of the Tzemach Tzedek was that it was Moitzoi Shabbos Parsha Shmos. But it was going into Sunday of Parshas Va'era. And what is Va'era? That's already when you start speaking about the Gilui of Ani Havaya. Hashem is saying that he's being revealed as Ani Havaya. This is the level of Atzmos Ein Sof, which up until then was not revealed. As Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu that up until now it was not revealed with my Midah of Emes. Va'era itself also says that Rebbe is in the word of Re'iyah, of seeing, of revelation. That means that even those levels that are completely higher than Ishtal Shalus are coming down in a way that it can be seen and it can be revealed ba'ofen pnimi.